Every single year, millions of people stand in a room, raise their right hand, and become citizens of a country they weren't born in. Governments stamp the paperwork, lawyers certify it, and ceremonies mark the whole shebang. But what actually happens the day after? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the massive global scale of naturalization and, honestly, the really complex emotional reality that kicks in after the ceremony is over. We're going to unpack the actual data behind who you become when all that paperwork is finally finished. Because, the reality for a lot of people echoes this one very specific sentiment. They gave me a passport. Nobody told me about the rest. And that's exactly what we're looking at today. We aren't just talking about legal boxes to check. We're using hard sociological data to validate that incredibly complex human journey. And yeah, that totally common imposter syndrome that so often tags along with legal citizenship. The research actually shows that the hardest question people face isn't, am I a citizen? It's, am I really one of them? Let's just start with the sheer scale of what is happening globally right now, because it is so much bigger than you might think. 820,000. That is the staggering number of people who naturalized in North America in just one single year. Think about that for a second. That's nearly 1 million individual lives legally redefined, all in just one region of the world. And this whole thing, it is accelerating everywhere. If we look at data from Eurostat, 1.2 million people acquired EU citizenship in 2024. Guys, that is a massive 54% jump compared to just 10 years ago. So we are looking at a rapidly accelerating worldwide trend here. It's truly a global phenomenon. Just to break that down a bit more, we can see exactly where these massive shifts are happening today. In 2024, Germany alone saw 289,000 naturalizations. Spain had 252,000. Italy came in right behind with 217,000. And if we look over at Oceania, Australia conferred citizenship on 165,000 people. Millions of individuals are crossing borders and continents right now. This isn't just some localized shift. It is a profound global movement happening right before our eyes. But, okay, here's where we hit a really fascinating paradox. According to U.S. federal data, there are over 10.7 million permanent residents currently eligible to naturalize in the U.S. So why do fewer than 8% actually apply? Over 10 million people perfectly qualify to take the oath tomorrow, but they just don't. Why is that? Just 8%. That leaves this absolutely massive 92% slice of people who are totally eligible but haven't applied. So the real crux of the issue isn't just who naturalizes. It's why so many perfectly qualified people don't take that final step. And the crazy thing is, this giant gap of people who could apply but choose not to, or maybe simply can't, well, it exists in almost every major destination country worldwide. To understand why this happens, we really have to look at the giant walls standing right before the ceremony. We're talking about exhaustive bureaucratic hurdles. Think about it. Years of continuous residency, rigorous language proficiency tests, complex civics and knowledge exams, exhaustive background checks, and on top of all that, thousands of dollars in fees. In fact, a study by New America found that over half of applicants described this whole process as long, outdated, and just exhausting. One person literally described staring at the application for a full year before finally bringing herself to sit down and fill the whole thing out. For so many people, it is not a lack of desire. It's just pure exhaustion. Which leads us directly to what experts call the paradox of the process. On one hand, you have these prohibitive systemic costs and barriers, and on the other hand, you have the marginalized immigrants who actually need this citizenship the most. Research from Stanford's Immigration Policy Lab found something really quite striking. The system creates the highest, most prohibitive barriers for the exact disadvantaged groups who would actually benefit the most from citizenship. So unfortunately, the harder it is to get, the less likely the people who truly need it are going to be able to try. But let's say you do make it through. You pay all those fees, you pass the exams, you raise your right hand, and you take the oath. What actually changes? Let's pivot from the barriers for a second and look at the tangible, scientifically proven benefits of finally holding that brand new passport in your hands. This brings us to what economists call the citizenship premium, and the research here is absolutely rock solid. Data from the ISA World of Labor and the Journal of Labor Economics shows that citizenship directly, measurably results in higher wage growth, much more stable employment, and real upward mobility into better-paid white-collar roles. Plus, it grants access to public sector and union jobs that were totally closed off before, not to mention vastly expanded travel mobility.
Basically, when those legal barriers disappear, freedom and upward mobility rush in to take their place.
Now, there is a really crucial twist in this data. Using statistics from the Netherlands, researchers found that the citizenship premium delivers significantly higher gains for folks coming from economically disadvantaged origins compared to those from advantaged ones. Let that sink in. The passport delivers the most significant economic boost to those who had the least to begin with. It is literally the most powerful tool for the people the world tends to talk about the least.
Okay, so the piece of paper absolutely delivers on its economic promises. But the most common question people report struggling with after naturalization actually has nothing to do with jobs or travel. It's simply, who am I now? And this brings us to a really fascinating psychological reality. Sociologist Irene Blomrad coined a term for this, the citizen outsider. It describes a naturalized immigrant who has officially attained legal citizenship but still experiences this residual sense of being separate or just not fully belonging it.
And the numbers completely validate that emotional experience. Research shows that while 79% of naturalized citizens in one major study did feel like they belonged, that number is still measurably lower than the majority native-born population. So the piece of paper changes overnight, but that deep internal feeling of belonging, yeah, that takes a whole lot longer. This ties directly into something called Berry's acculturation model. It basically says that after naturalization, people tend to land in one of four psychological profiles. First, there's dual identity, which means having strong ties to both your heritage and your new country. Then national only, where you predominantly lean into your brand new identity. Ethnic only, where you hold your heritage really tightly and treat the new citizenship as purely functional. And finally, disengagement, where you kind of disconnect from both. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that while dual identity is proven to be the most psychologically stable outcome, finding that perfect equilibrium does not happen automatically. It takes years of adjustment. And you know what else? The physical distance of the original migration drastically affects the size of this identity gap. Think about it. An intracontinental move usually means you share some language roots and maybe a broader regional identity. But an intercontinental move, that involves vast cultural distance and entirely distinct visual or social languages. Basically, the further the cultural distance, the more pronounced the gap is between what your official paper says and what you actually see when you look in the mirror. Now, here is perhaps the most counterintuitive finding in this entire body of research, and this comes from the Trajectories and Origins survey. Are you ready for this? Belonging tends to precede naturalization. That's right. The ceremony itself doesn't magically manufacture a feeling of belonging. It actually just confirms a feeling that was already building over time. Intentions to naturalize are actually highest among those who already feel like they belong, not the other way around. Kind of mind-blowing, right? But hey, if you are currently waiting for that feeling of belonging to fully kick in, do not let this discourage you, because the long game is very, very clear. Stanford research proves that while integration isn't instant, removing those legal barriers eventually leads to real, measurable civic belonging. Over time, naturalized citizens show a massively increased engagement with local media, a much stronger desire to stay long-term, and significantly greater participation in local civic life. Simply removing the barriers that block belonging is truly, undeniably transformative. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The research is completely clear. The paper citizen phase, that lingering feeling of being an outsider, is not a failure. It is a scientifically documented, perfectly normal stage of a much, much longer journey. The ceremony really is just the beginning. So, if the ceremony is just the start of the journey, where are you in yours? Are you just starting to consider it, maybe right in the thick of that exhausting paperwork, or are you currently navigating that complex identity gap on the other side? Whatever it is, it's a profound human journey, and the data clearly shows you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Keep exploring, keep learning, and really think about where you stand in this incredible global movement.